Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Korea Society's Young Professionals Night webcast with Glow Recipe co-founders and co-CEOs, Sarah Lee and Christine Chang. My name is Esther Song, and I'm the Associate Director of Communications at the Korea Society. We hope all of you are staying safe and healthy in these uncertain times. And for those of you tuning in who are fighting on the front lines of the pandemic, we sincerely thank you for all that you are doing. If you are tuning into a Korea Society program for the first time, welcome. We're glad that you can join us as we debut our first ever Young Professionals Night webcast. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Young Professionals Night, it is a program series in which we feature industry experts who speak on their careers and share their advice with the audience. Tonight, we are excited to be joined by Glow Recipe co-founders Sarah Lee and Christine Chang. Several years ago, Sarah and Christine saw an opportunity to leverage their bicultural and bilingual backgrounds in the emerging clean beauty market. In 2014, they launched Glow Recipe as a specially curated destination for natural, cruelty-free beauty products and a platform to introduce the latest skincare innovations from South Korea to beauty lovers across the world. Since then, Glow Recipe has gained popularity with products like the cult favorite watermelon sleeping mask. Every new addition to the Glow Recipe family has ranked #1 in traffic or sales at Sephora at launch. Glow Recipe has expanded internationally to the UK, Germany, Australia, and New Zealand while launching sister brand Sweet Chef Skincare in Target. Glow Recipe has also received extensive press coverage and accolades in global media outlets including Vogue, Forbes, and Fortune, and was named one of the best online sources for beauty by InStyle. Moderating tonight's program is Jenny Jin, beauty director and on-camera host at PureWow, a digital lifestyle brand with a focus on beauty, food, wellness, and family. She currently hosts a weekly YouTube series called The Glow Up, where she gives insider access into the latest beauty and wellness trends, as well as an Instagram live series called Outside In, where she shares the backstories of beauty and wellness entrepreneurs. In other words, she's the perfect fit for tonight's program. Following the moderated portion of the program, we will have a short session where Sarah and Christine will answer questions from you, the viewers. So those of you who have already submitted your questions, thank you so much. If you have not done so but would like to, you can direct your questions to development@koreasociety.org. And now, without further ado, I will turn it over to Christine, Sarah, and Jenny. Thank you.
Hey guys, good night, or not good night, good evening.
Hi.
Hello, I'm so excited to talk to you guys, to Sarah, to Christine, and to everyone who's joining in from Korea Society. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy, and you guys are in for a treat because these guys have a pretty unique story that I can't wait for them to share with everyone. So we're gonna talk about your journey to starting Glow Recipe, how you were influenced by Korean skincare, how you built your business and continue to build your business, and what self-care means during this time. You ready, guys?
Ready.
Yeah, so excited.
Hey, so let's start from the beginning. When you first launched Glow Recipe, you were an online skincare destination and you curated other brands. So where did the idea for curating Korean skincare brands come from, and what did those first steps look like to make that actually happen?
Yeah, so I'll start and Christine always can chime in. So Christine and I have been friends for over 15 years, a really long time. We actually met back in Korea when we started working at L'Oreal in the Korea office, and we've been friends ever since. And interestingly, unplanned, we ended up moving to New York at the same time a few years later. So we were also working in the New York office of the L'Oreal office. So it's just so interesting how life turns out because we've been friends. We're always so passionate about beauty, especially Korean skincare. We were being trained on marketing and product development in our jobs. And a few years ago, I would say 5 or 6 years ago, we were catching up, as we always were, in my apartment, sheet masking together and over wine, because you need that when you're sheet masking. We were just catching up on how we were working on Korean inspired projects actually in our respective departments. And that kind of gave us this aha moment of wanting to do this ourselves because we believed in Korean skincare, the potential of the technology going global. And we thought that we were really well equipped to start this journey together. Not only were we friends, but also we were trained with similar backgrounds in marketing, also understanding the US consumer, the global consumer in various departments that we worked at, but also we had this unique access to Korean beauty. And when we saw that opportunity, we had to really jump right in and decided that it was best for us to start introducing amazing products from indie Korean brands that we believed in and we were passionate about. So that's how it all started. And it was a really wild journey since then. I remember the first time that we just flew out to Korea and walked around the streets of Seoul, and we cold emailed and cold called a bunch of brands, pitched our idea, and then 2 weeks later we came back to New York with 9 exclusive contracts with these brands. It was a huge milestone for us, for sure.
And one thing to add to that, Jenny, is you asked about our early days. So once we got back, we had to actually build the site that we had pitched from scratch. Being at L'Oreal, we wouldn't trade that experience for the world because it was such a great grounding and educational experience. But you don't get access to like legal side of the business, for example, because you're not a lawyer, or the accounting side, or the digital encoding side. So there were a lot of things that we just learned by doing. So those early days where we were building the site, found an office somehow in the back office of someone else's corporate offices. They had one spare office, so we rented that out, packed everything by hand, wrote handwritten notes in every single package because we wanted to, even back then, really create a community of customers. And those memories are some of our best to this day. It wasn't the easiest days, but I think having that experience where we touched every facet of the business really informs how we make decisions as leaders today.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Also, how long were you guys curating the brands before you decided to start your own? What was that period of time? I should know this because I've known you during this entire time.
You have. Jenny
We met you like in the very beginning, Jenny.
one of our earliest supporters. I think we just cold called you too at that point and somehow met you. So Glow Recipe Skincare, which is the watermelon mask and all these fruit-based skincare items that you see today at Sephora, is actually only 3 years old. May is the anniversary date, so we're planning a little something special later this month, so stay tuned. But thinking of that is actually kind of amazing to us because in 3 short years, so much has happened, but it wouldn't have happened that quickly or the way it did if we didn't have that grounding experience of building glowrecipe.com in the community first. So that first social milestone of hitting 1,000 followers, 10,000 followers, and so on and so forth really gave us that insight into the full journey of how to involve your customer and in community and your decision-making process as a small business. And even at 700 something plus thousand followers right now on Glow Recipe, we still have very much that same ethos because of our early days. But even back then, when we were curating, we always had in mind eventually that we would create our own products because we come from that background and having done skincare and beauty and makeup and hair care across both of us for years and years. There were just these technologies and these ingredients we wanted to leverage in a way that was unique to us.
What was that exact moment though, where you were like, it's time? Did you have that moment?
Yeah, we did actually. It's a good question. So when we were curating Korean beauty products, part of what we were passionate about was education, because what we saw in the market when we first started the business was Korean beauty not being translated in the right way. There are products that have super high quality, amazing textures, beautiful results that you can experience once you get your hands on them. But we've seen other retailers, such as Amazon or eBay, where products were being sold, but without the marketing or the brand story because of the specific platform there are. And also a lot of them are sold at promotional prices. So we just didn't think that these products were given the justice or the right sort of storytelling, and we were so passionate about it. And when we started curating these products and brands, we also saw at the same time a lot of misperception around how Korean beauty routine equals 25 steps or 15 plus steps. And there were, I'm sure you're familiar with this, Jenny, too, because there were so many articles that spoke to this extensive routine and steps for Korean skincare. It almost became this synonym to Korean skincare, the 15 steps. And that was actually a little bit frustrating for us because it wasn't, number one, reality, but this aha moment was actually our big moment for us to really think about our innovations. We walked into, I think, one of the Sephora stores in New York City one day, and Sephora was one of the large retailers, the first large retailers that actually spoke to Korean beauty in a really meaningful way. And at that time, they had this nationwide animation, and the whole theme was around Korean skincare. So we were so excited to see that. One of our curated brands was actually featured as a highlighted brands as well. So we wanted to see, and we were like mystery shopping, and we were talking to the beauty advisors in the stores. And when we were asking them about it, one of them actually said, you know, I think Korean beauty is so amazing and I'm intrigued. But as someone that is, you know, super busy, I don't really have time to go through 15 steps of my routine. I barely have time to eat. You know, how can I recommend to my clients these, you know, products that I don't use because of the time that it takes and the money that it takes? If I have to buy 15 products, I'm going to have to invest too much. And I'm a little bit overwhelmed. So we heard that and we were heartbroken because, first of all, it's not a reality, but also this is kind of the barrier for people to not even enter into the Korean beauty category. So we felt that, you know, our mission then was to really break that barrier and help people to understand the power of Korean beauty because the technology is amazing, not because of the complicated steps. So we wanted to condense the routines and create our own products that are hybrid of multiple functions or benefits, which is why we first launched the Watermelon Glow Sleeping Mask that helps to exfoliate and hydrate all at the same time. So yeah, that was our aha moment.
Well, thank God you jumped on that. Speaking for everyone who's used the watermelon mask. But you touched on something interesting. I feel like there was this big watershed moment when K-beauty just kind of exploded, and you were definitely at the forefront of that. And I'm curious from your perspective, why Korean beauty took off the way it did and why it resonates.
So K-beauty, I firmly believe this, and Sarah too, that it just irrevocably changed the beauty and skincare market. It was the beginning of this era where finally skincare was having its moment in the sun. And it was because K-beauty had all of these formats and ingredients and textures that were so interesting. Like sheet masks, you get a 20-minute facial in a sheet. And then there were splash masks and pulp essences and essence in oils and oil in serums and all of these amazing pressed serums, like innovations you've never heard before that were giving your skincare moment a little bit more excitement that previously only existed really in the makeup category, and skincare was a little bit more dry, a little bit more clinical, and less colorful, if you will. And because of that, K-beauty was everywhere in terms of press. There were retailers that wanted to carry it. We would get constantly reached out to by different partners to curate different K-beauty items for them. But what we were realizing was, one of the things we realized was that K-beauty as a category and certain categories like sheet masks were dominating, but there wasn't any long-term brand building happening. Because it's difficult to build a brand in a market like the US where there's so much competition, but then there are certain things that are getting lost in translation. So we would hear from our community, for example, they would have this amazing ampule that they love, but what's an ampule versus an essence versus a serum? And then it's not even clearly explained on the packaging. So we had to do a lot of translation, over label, and a lot of education. So from the very beginning days, YouTube, Instagram were always our tools to disseminate what's this, what's that, how to use a routine, how to structure things, and how to pick and choose the right K-beauty products for you. But I think there was a limit to how much we could translate for the US market when the original product and the original brands didn't have full knowledge of the market they were targeting. So at that point, we realized that with Glow Recipe Skincare, what we would be able to do was really bring the best of both worlds together. The K-beauty innovations, technologies, the interesting ingredients, and the fun skin entertainment factor, but at the same time, results-driven, easy to use, accessible, approachable. And so that fused together is really what you see in Glow Recipe Skincare today. And as for the K-beauty movement, I don't think it was a trend ever. I think it became something so big, it became just a part of every skincare item out there, because now you see Neutrogena was water boost gel creams, and you see these huge companies that have all adopted these categories in their own way. And ultimately it's become better for the consumer because now you have this plethora of options available to you that are interesting and approachable and just change up your skincare routine. So while the our goal from the beginning was always to make sure K-beauty was more than a trend, and I think that has very much happened now in the market. Our second long-term goal is to just build a brand that will last and stand the test of time, which is what we're trying to do with Glow Recipe.
Gosh, you guys are like literally answering all the questions that I'm thinking of as you are answering.
Oh, really?
But I do want you to further on that, which is, okay, so building off of that, what do you see is the future of Korean skincare outside of Korea, particularly in the US, and what role do you hope Glow Recipe will play in that future?
Yeah. So I think there's still a lot of work to do in terms of, being part of this movement, but also educating everyone around what these amazing benefits are from Korean skincare. So for example, the creative concepts that come out of Korea, it's still nonstop. We see it all the time, whether it's, fast ways to achieve glow, whether it's condensing routines. We've seen recently skip care now becoming like a big trend. Whether it's, it really depends on the lifestyle and the time and the situation. But Korea is really fast when it comes to just coming up with amazing and interesting creative ideas and pumping out concepts as we speak. So I think there's that. Secondly, I think the sensoriality and the fact that the experience of skincare is as important, if not more important than the result itself. I think that mindset is still very much to be spread more, because we believe in that wholeheartedly. I think that that the full journey of first looking at the product, getting attracted by it, purchasing it, and then looking at the texture, feeling it, touching it, applying it onto your skin, patting it all in, smelling the sense, the smell of the texture, and then seeing that full result after, like the full 360 journey is what makes skincare so special and different and personal too. And I think that's very much embedded in the Korean skincare approach. And then finally, the overall philosophy of Korean skincare, I think, is still quite advanced, that there's a lot more room for us to help educate that. And part of that is, taking skin almost as part of your body and giving it a very holistic approach. And we haven't really seen that in the Western side. So we're very passionate about this, actually, to spread the love on this aspect, where, when you feel a certain way about your body, you're listening to it and you're giving it what it needs, right? If you're extra tired, you want to sleep more. When you've traveled a lot, you want to make sure you're, fully hydrated and you feel refreshed and energized in different ways that you approach it. It's the same for skin. And that's always been what we learned from our very young age, from our mother and grandmothers, where skin is an extension of your body. So you should only listen to it and give it what it needs, not what it doesn't need, which is where the clean skincare philosophy also comes in. You don't need to give it all these frills. You really need to feed it only the things that it needs. It's very holistic once again, but also it's customized, and everybody's skin is very different, but also your own skin can be different every single day. So our whole approach to this is, you should take it day by day. And, there's no one size fits all when it comes to skin. And we believe in that. And I think it just applies actually to everywhere in the world, because no skin is the same. And it's just about really educating yourself and being empowered to make the right choices for the skincare that you need. Which is why if you look at, a Korean girl in Korea, Their like medicine cabinet, you'll see a ton of products, but it doesn't mean that they're using 25 steps of the routine. It actually just means they have the knowledge and they're interested in trying and experimenting and giving the skin that fun experience to try different things and give the time for it to improve over time. So I think that philosophy, the approach once again, and the whole experience with Korean beauty products can be translated to the rest of the categories and different skincare categories overall. And I think there's more room for us to be part of that, to teach everybody as much as we can what that means. So I think that's the future. How do we really kind of make sure that everyone is empowered and educated to make the right choices for their own skin, because it is an extension of their body and it is something that you should really listen to carefully every day.
Listen to? I love that. So, okay. My next question is something that you touch on, which is taking care of your skin as an individual. So I'm going to tie that into self-care, because I think that's another trend. I don't even want to call it a trend, because it really should be a lifestyle, right? So my question is, how does self-care and skincare correlate? That's question number one. And how have you as a brand shifted your content and messaging to speak to that philosophy?
Great question. So skincare and self-care, we feel, is closely correlated because, first of all, skin is your largest organ. And how your skin feels very often affect how you just feel overall. We did actually this fun activation where you wrote love letters to your skin with our community, and the letters poured in, and people posted it on social. And what we saw was that the relationship with your skin is so complex and delicate, and people were referring to their skin almost like their best friend. In the case of, dear skin, I love you. You've been with me my whole life, but this week you've been really difficult and I'm about to break up with you. Like, there's this very emotional factor. And so taking care of your skin, I think, can do a lot overall for your mental health, for your physical health, for your emotional health. And we are committed to teaching our community ways to do that. So, for example, when we give tips around masking, it's not just the fact that, hey, this mask is great because it has watermelon extract and AHAs. It's really a deeply educational approach where we're like, okay, first of all, this is what masking can achieve. This is how you can incorporate masking into your life if you're super busy. 10 minutes in the morning before you even wash your face, as soon as you get out of bed. And then by the time you've had breakfast and brushed your teeth, you've done a 10-minute masking. But if you want to do the overnight thing, this is your option. Here are the ingredients, and this is why we selected this particular blend of ingredients. If you want a multi-mask because you feel dry here, but you feel oily in your T-zone, this is how you do it. And so it's just a overarching approach to just self-care with the skincare product versus stopping at the product. And I think that approach has always resonated with our audience. And it's funny that you mentioned how we've pivoted our self-care messaging lately. I think we've been able to, with everything that's been happening recently, to take it even further. So skincare, absolutely yes. Our tutorials continue to be disseminated on our social platforms. But what we've been able to do with this series called Glow Time, and Jenny kindly was part of that as well, is that we've been working with friends of the brand to create these fun moments, because self-care doesn't end here. Self-care is about an overarching concept, a holistic approach to taking care of yourself. So we've offered dance classes with a master dancer on our IG Live. We've done drawing classes with an influencer friend called Pony Boy. And the audience was actually able to participate in the IG Live and dictate what color the dress was and what shape the bag was. And that type of participation, I think, is really meaningful for people to affect the outcome of these things, of their favorite influencers. Or we worked with another influencer friend to do a meditation class and a sound bath class. And through this, I mean, you might have the mask on while you're listening to the sound bath, but it's still an overarching experience. And we've gotten a tremendous response from these recent activations.
Speaking of care, I know that you guys recently donated over $80,000 worth of skincare products to the medical professionals. Can you talk to me more about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's something that we could do as a brand. The least that we could do is how we felt. We started seeing photos and pictures, emails from our customers. Also, we were reading a lot of articles about the medical workers who were, still skin. And this is another way for them to not only, take care of skin, but it's a self-care moment that they can have at the end of a long day. So we decided to donate our beauty products to some of the hospitals, but also we worked with Donate Beauty, which is another, you're familiar with that, Jenny, right? Some of the editors have created this organization to help, hospital workers and medical workers as well. So in total, we donated over $80,000 worth of products, but we want to continue to do this more because it's not only meaningful, but I think it's really the least that we could do. And no matter what size you are of a company, I think there's always something that you can give back. So this is just a beginning for us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that, guys. So we're going to shift gears a little bit to talk about the operational side of things. There are so many businesses that are built on passion and a really good idea, but without a clear vision and structure, businesses are hard to sustain, yet alone grow the way that Glow Recipe has been able to do in the past several years. So my question is, how have you been able to leverage your passion for skincare into growing your brand? And if someone wants to start their own skincare brand right now, what advice would you give them? Not even a skincare brand. Let's blow it up bigger. Brand, period.
Right. So our passion, you're right, it's very directly correlated with what we've done with Glow Recipe. And I think from the very beginning, having a clear point of difference and a clear mission and value system really helped us. And what I mean by that is K-beauty was a trend. And with any trend, what happens is that there are a lot of players that start to come into the market. So we definitely weren't the only K-beauty curation site out there. But what differentiated us from the very beginning and created this community of super fans was that we always insisted on cruelty-free and clean from the very beginning. We wouldn't curate a product just because it was trendy for 2 minutes. It was more of a thoughtful process and a lot of testing. And we turned away a lot of brands because they weren't adhering to some of these values. And an example of that is snail mucin, for example, which was an extremely trendy ingredient. And there's a lot of benefits to this ingredient, but we weren't able to really find a partner that was harvesting this ingredient from the snails in a way that we agreed with. So we passed and we didn't curate products with snail at all. And that strong point of view, I think, might have hurt us in the short term in terms of dollars, but in the long run, our community now trusts us and believes in us. Our team members also know that once we've set this standard, we're not deviating from it. And I think that creates a stronger team and a stronger community. And our advice, or at least my advice, for people who are just starting their own brands is to approach it in a similar way where you have to ask yourself the hard questions. What is your point of difference? If there are other competitors in the market, why would anyone come to you? And then how does this dovetail with you as a person and your values? Because your business is a big part of your life. Sarah and I joke that we text and talk to each other more than we do our own husbands. It's actually not a joke. It's happening.
It's true. Yeah.
Because your startup is your baby. So you need to make sure that those values that you espouse in your business also dovetail with who you are, because you can't ultimately be that authentic face of that business for 3 years, 5 years, and so on and so forth if the two don't congeal, like if the two aren't working together. So that would be my advice.
So actually, I had a follow-up question to that. You did show a strong commitment to cruelty-free and clean before it was a thing, because now in the beauty industry, from my perspective at least, that is the new frontier, right? That and sustainability. Where did that commitment come from? Is that just something that you personally believed in?
Yeah, I mean, everything that we do with Glow Recipe is what we always have believed in and are personally passionate about. But yeah, when we first started glowrecipe.com, and even when we were curating Korean skincare brands, our positioning was natural, harsh-free skincare, Korean skincare. So if you think about, a Venn diagram where there's Korean skincare and natural clean, we kind of combined those two and we were in the middle. And there was no other company that kind of stood for that specific positioning. And, in a way, we're debating, like, is this going to be too niche? Are we going to be, too specific? And again, like to your point, 5-6 years ago, not everybody actually even talked about clean. Wasn't even a phrase that we talked about at that time, which is why we called it harsh free, but in a way it meant clean. We didn't have parabens, synthetic dyes, or any other harsh ingredients that we thought were toxins in the skincare that we curated. So that's how we started. And it was more challenging because, it just is, you have to filter through all of these criteria, and it's very stringent. And some of the companies were annoyed with the process. And, there were a lot of back and forth, but I think it's the best thing that we did because we really kind of stood by what we personally believed in. And when this whole trend with clean beauty came about, we were really happy that it was finally becoming a little bit more mass, and the fact that everyone is now understanding and the awareness is there, because we felt like we were on a mission to educate not only on Korean skincare, but also harsh-free, clean, natural skincare and the power of it. So yeah, it's been personally our passion from the very beginning.
Yeah, it goes back to Christine's advice. Have a very clear point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So before you guys launched Glow Recipe, you both worked at L'Oreal for over a decade. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah, that's where you guys met and became friends.
Yes.
How did that background help you when you came time to launch your own business?
So L'Oreal is very entrepreneurial. I remember going there on my first day as an intern because you have to pass 2 months of internship before you're even considered for a full-time position in Korea. They were infamous for this. That's the day I met Sarah as well. I think she was actually my coffee mentor, something. And
Oh.
we just hit it off right away. And at the time, I came home and I was overwhelmed because L'Oreal's style is a little bit of they throw the book at you and you are meant to figure it out. It's not a very manual or process driven company. It's more of a, if you have the passion and the entrepreneurship, you're going to figure it out kind of company. And then as time passed, I realized what a blessing it was that I started my career here. And I think Sarah feels the same way, is because if you're ambitious and you love learning and you love to be stretched and go outside of your comfort zone and in the sake of growth, for the sake of growth, it's the perfect environment for you. And you're giving massive responsibilities and budgets by the time you're in year 1, year 2 of your career there, if you prove yourself. And so it was 10 years of honestly a lot of fun, a lot of learning. And I don't think we would have been able to do what we have done to date with Glow Recipe without that background. And I know everyone's entrepreneurial and startup journey is different. Some people start right out of school, which is totally fine as well. But for us, it served us in so many ways. I can't even iterate them all. But I think the key ones are that sense of entrepreneurship and get it done attitude and being able to figure it out, a tremendous network, especially a lot of inspiring female mentors, and just this overarching view of having been at a pure beauty player, because L'Oreal is actually one of the few pure beauty players in the industry. A lot of them have other industries along with beauty, the larger conglomerates. And because of that, there was such an appreciation for beauty, and it's called métier at L'Oreal, where you have this sense, this aesthetic that correlates to beauty, that gut, where you're passing by a Sephora and you're not able to pass by because you have to go in and touch and play with every single product there is there because you're just a beauty junkie. And I think that passion for beauty really started there.
I'm curious about what the difference is in corporate culture in Korea versus America, because you guys spent time working in both. And I've always wondered that myself as a Korean American. So could you tell the key differences between those two marketplaces?
Yeah, so I think our experience is a little unique because we worked in a French company that's based in Korea. And we had a lot of global meetings. So we had constant, very dynamic communication flow going with people outside of Korea. our emails were written in English a lot of times. We presented to our senior management, who, oftentimes were, from France. So we presented a lot in English. All of our PowerPoint decks were actually made in English. So it's a little bit of a mix of, multiple cultures, I would say, in one. And then when we moved to America, we definitely had that consistency, but then there were some new elements that we learned. So I would say something that I think that I can point out as a key point of difference in both markets is in Korea, you do still, even though, it's the same sort of mentality where if you work hard, you will be rewarded for that across the board. And that was the L'Oreal sort of philosophy overall for HR. But hierarchy was definitely there in Korea. And, if somebody is a little bit older than you, you definitely needed to, treat them a certain way, no matter what level you're at. And that was very, very important. And the other thing is, the bonding moment with the team was so critical. And it's a very cultural thing in Korea, as you know. You need to go out and have a meal with somebody to talk about personal stuff and business, and you build that bond, and that actually makes your negotiations a lot easier and better. It actually helps you brainstorm ideas better as a team in Korea, and it was so critical. So I remember, every single meal time, it was something that we planned ahead, like, who am I going to have lunch with tomorrow, the day after? It was a thing that we had to schedule in advance, and it was very important event of the day. Whereas when we moved to New York, I mean, there were some stats about, I think, 80% plus actually eat lunch at their desk in New York City, right? And it was an adjustment for sure when I first moved, because I just wasn't, used to not having lunch outside and having that moment to bond with other colleagues and talking about, everything in the office. And then in addition to that, it was all about efficiency here. um, so having, the ROI in the short period of time is how we were measured in terms of our competency and performance. So I think that shift in mindset, but also the approach to how we, we're getting our work done was quite different. And then the last bit was, I still remember the first time I experienced this, going into the meetings where, even if you don't have a specific topic to talk about, to be able to present in meetings and question things and address issues vocally was very, very important in this culture in the US. And I'm so used to it now, but I still remember 10 years ago when I moved to New York, it was an adjustment, because in the Korean culture, you're kind of, if you don't have a very substantial element to talk about, it's almost not respectful to speak up. So it was the opposite mindset that I needed to get adjusted to. But I think having two perspectives, so being able to listen to others a little bit better, respecting others, bonding with other people, team spirit, and then being here, addressing issues, questioning things to make sure that you really understand every step of the way and not jumping into a conclusion right away. Combining those two actually is really helpful actually as a leadership role today. And I think, Christine, you can agree to that too. I think it's just an interesting perspective to have, because you're always able to think about the other person's point of view and the different cultures that they might be coming from.
Great.
Hear, hear. So what I'm thinking is Korea Society, we're going to do a karaoke bonding night for the young professionals. What do you think?
That's the best way.
I'll keep us
bond.
Yes.
Exactly. So you guys, you launched a sister brand. As if you didn't have enough on your plates, you launched a sister brand called Sweet Chef at the end of 2018. What compelled you to launch this brand? And what is the difference between Sweet Chef and Glow Recipe?
So Sweet Chef is a line, if you're not familiar, in the audience, that where everything is clean, veggie driven. So there's lots of interesting ingredients like kale and beet and ginger that you would get at your local juice bar and that you would consume for health reasons yourself, for your body, but for your skin. but everything is under $25. So we purposely made this line very approachable and accessible because it was our mission to disseminate clean beauty to an even wider audience at a different price point with Sweet Chef. And the inspiration actually came from one of the moments when Sarah and I were traveling and we were drinking our usual ginger shots at the airport because we just needed that boost. And we were like, why doesn't this exist for the face? And we came back, created this concept around serums that you would cocktail, similar to how you would cocktail different juice ingredients, but you're cocktailing them for your face. And sheet masks were the start. So the serum category and the sheet mask category are also such K-beauty staples that we wanted to start there. So there's 3 types of sheet masks and 3 types of serums with hero vegetable ingredients, but they're also paired with vitamins. So it's beet plus vitamin A, ginger plus vitamin C, so that it's just very easy to understand what you're getting and the benefits of each line. And recently we launched additional extensions in the line, which include a lip mask, oil, which won a beauty award recently. So it's been really gratifying to see this line grow and see the increasing social buzz around it.
Guys, I could talk to you forever, but I'm getting an alert that we have to keep some time open for Q&A. So I'm gonna let Esther hop in to give some closing remarks before we dive in.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, so let's jump into the Q&As. Let me just pull that up here real quick. All right. All right, so our first question comes from Jane, and she asks, I am interested to know what skincare routine changes are necessary as one grows older. Also, what differences should there be for different skin types, like oily skin types versus combination skin types? Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, actually. Recently, we did an animation actually with Sephora that spoke to skincare by age. And it's interesting because your age does actually correlate with some of the symptoms that you see or some of the skin concerns that you might see a little bit more. So, for example, in your 20s, you would see more, for example, acne or skin buildup issues. Whereas in your 30s, you're going to start to see fine lines and dark circles and more milia, for example. So definitely, I think it's important to always assess what you're seeing as their skin concern and addressing each issue with the right ingredients and the right type of product. I would say the one category or step that's really important as you age is your treatment step. Obviously, I think every treatment product and formula is different, but this is where the whole listen to your skin aspect comes in, where if you feel that you're dealing with hyperpigmentation, for example, or extra fine lines that you're seeing a little bit more, your smile lines are getting deeper, for example, it's important to use the treatments with the active ingredients that can address these issues. For example, vitamin C or retinol are amazing ingredients to address any signs of aging. So that's the first answer. And then the second question that you asked about different skin types, even with the same skin type, you can have different skin concerns every day. So that's just one aspect to think about. But if you're born with extra oily T-zone, or if you have dry skin, it is important to address the skin type differently. But then also you might have a preference in different skin textures as well. So for example, I'm an oily combination skin type, and I really love product textures that are super lightweight and fast to absorb. That's my preference because as an oily person, I don't like anything that feels like it's an extra layer or a buildup, right? And you don't want to feel congested. So for those skin types that are similar to mine, my skin twins out there, if you have oily combo skin, it's important to find textures that might, number one, be oil-free. And if not, it's important to find something that's just lightweight. So upon application, you want it to feel like it's really fast to absorb and getting in there so that it penetrates fast. And then if you have dry skin, I think the preference typically is to feel like you have that warm hug on your skin so it doesn't feel extra dry the next morning. So to have extra nurturing and nourishing formulas that have maybe a drop of oil, for example, could be really nice. But yeah, I think it really depends on each day, and combining that sort of idea of the skin concern and your skin type and addressing it with a different product is important.
Great. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, Sarah. And actually, our next question comes from a viewer named Sarah. And she has a very good question. She says, K-beauty brands have proven effective at marketing products to Korean and East Asian audiences with colors that work for common skin tones in the region, or merchandise that promotes common beauty ideals in the Korean or East Asian beauty market, like skin whitening, for example. As K-beauty brands shift to more global and diverse audiences, how should they change their strategies to reach a more racially diverse audience?
It's a great question. First thing to address is that I think skin whitening is a little bit of a mistranslation. So there's definitely products in Korea that are labeled whitening or whitening, but the intent behind that product is actually brightening. So similar to what you would see in a product in the US, for example, like Clinique's Even Better line, that is meant to target hyperpigmentation or brightness, uneven skin tone. And because of the way certain terminologies were used, I think there's often a misconception that there's racial undertones about these products, which aren't really the case. I do agree that the marketing can be a little bit more homogenous in terms of models that are being used in Korea because the population is a little bit more homogenous than it is in the US. And so models have traditionally been for example, a certain look or like very bright skin and certain features. But what I am seeing is that with the advent of the more diverse population, definitely Korean brands are trying to pivot as well. And if you look at a Korean brand that's targeted toward Gen Z or millennials in their local market, the marketing messaging has actually shifted a lot. And I think that's really, really exciting to see in terms of diversity. For us, as an example, for Glow Recipe, what we've been doing is that we're really talking to the concept that skin is skin. And I think everyone agrees with this. Like, you don't have to be a certain skin tone or a certain ethnicity to use a certain product. Skin is skin. You can obviously customize the solutions based on your concerns, to Sarah's point earlier, but you wouldn't customize certain lines based on how you felt that you looked. And part of how we communicate this is that if you go to our social media platforms or our campaigns, we use models of every walk of life. And what I mean by that is different ages, different skin tones, different skin textures even. We recently used an acne prone model, and some of the most beautiful visuals we've ever captured came from that shoot because we were just showing her skin texture as it was. And we truly believe that that's beautiful because that captures what's actually happening out there. No one has perfect porcelain skin all the time. And we also take care to not retouch our visuals because whenever we can, so that people are really seeing real skin textures versus an idealized version of what skin is supposed to look like, but might not be attainable to everyone. So I think taking those types of tactics where you're really thinking about your audience and the messaging that you're bringing to them with even the visuals that you post on your social media, everything really matters because your community is watching and they're understanding what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think something that I noticed that I think is a very positive trend in the beauty world these days is I think taking on that more honest approach, acknowledging that we're all humans with flaws. So I think that's a really good point. And shifting gears a little bit to address the current situation that we're all in right now, Ava asks, how much of your business before COVID-19 was online versus in-store sales? And what would you say the breakdown is now? And where do you see, I guess, that trend going when all of this is over, hopefully soon? Even, we still have to be careful maintaining social distancing measures and wearing masks. How do you see that breakdown shifting?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We're actually actively talking about this very topic internally as well. But I would say, pre-COVID, our business had a really nice balance between online and offline. And, we were obviously very worried when this all happened and we started to quarantine. But what we were able to do is really, as a smaller company, indie brand, we were able to, you know, pivot and shift gears very quickly. The benefit that we have is we have our families in Asia too. So we already knew what was happening in Korea and China and different parts of the world. So as soon as we started hearing the news about, how it was affecting the other side of the world, we knew that it was going to happen here very soon. So we acted very quickly to make sure all of the new activations or launch strategies or plans were focused on digital only. So it was a very big decision that we had to make, but we really shuffled all of our plans. We brainstormed together, all 23 of us on a Zoom call, and we strategized in every aspect of the business to make sure that there's nothing that falls under the offline umbrella, but everything just kind of shifts gears. So for example, what we had to do for a launch that we recently did, which is a watermelon pore tight toner, we initially had planned to do a launch party. And every time Glow Recipe launches a new product, we always had an IRL party, whether it's in LA or New York, with the press and influencers and top customers. And it was part of our formula to make a launch successful. So we were nervous in how we could pivot this, but we decided to take the bet and think of a virtual way to still have a meaningful launch event. So what we did is we partnered with an influencer who's also a celebrity esthetician and had her live stream a facial moment that's inspired by Korean beauty, which is why we actually created the toner. And she spoke about the toner in her own authentic way while she was giving a facial to her sister, actually, who she was quarantining with. So it was a very real, authentic way of kind of showcasing the product at launch, but it worked. I think it was something that people actually wanted to see. And if it was an IRL event, it would have been a very different way of approaching it, where you can't really see the spatial moment in real life, if you're surrounded by hundreds of people in the same venue. So if anything, this was a really intimate way of getting into her house, looking at how she touches the skin and showing every step of the way. So I think we were able to push ourselves to be a little bit more creative and approach this very differently. And as a result, we actually surpassed our budget, which we had adjusted after COVID because we thought we would see a huge dip in the business, but we actually didn't. So as a result, it was actually very positive. And thankfully, the skincare industry actually is quite positive overall, because I think while we're all staying home, a lot of us are trying to take care of our skin a little bit better and more. And by having that paired with the content that we talked about earlier, Christine mentioned Glow Time, just encouraging people to self-care a little bit more and the reasons why and what the outcome is of that, I think helped to boost more interest in skincare overall. So it's been a very interesting journey and experience. And after all this is over, I think that things will change forever. So I think the way, even if the store is open, I think still people will feel a little bit more comfortable shopping online, at least for a while. I don't think there's going to be a ton of traffic in the stores, at least for a while as well. I myself will be extra careful walking out the door, So less travel, less traffic in stores, more sort of focus on how we can make sure that anything that we used to love in real life can be brought virtually is what everyone is still going to focus for a pretty long time, I think. So I don't think that it'll be the same as pre-COVID, actually. It's going to be a whole different world.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was just kind of soaking that in for a bit. But it's good to hear that, it's the changes haven't been negative. I mean, as you said, sales haven't dropped. And, the point that you made about, recorded facials being more intimate because you can see the person in their home. I think that's a really good point. And hopefully we'll see more of those positive trends continuing even after this.
Yeah.
And this question actually comes from our very own arts and culture director, J.O. She says that K-beauty is very well known, but there are also negative effects of focusing too much on the beauty side of it. So her question is, how do you balance the difference between doing what is good for you versus keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak, keeping up with trends? And how do you distinguish the difference between going for your best versus trying to meet other people's expectations?
Yeah, it's a great question. So
Yeah.
beauty inherently can get a bad rap, right? Because it's superficial, it seems surface, and it can seem that you're too obsessed with appearance. But what we really, really try to educate on with K-beauty is that K-beauty is truly a lifestyle and a holistic approach to self-care. And I think for a long time in the beginning trend, when K-beauty was exploding as a trend, some of those elements were lost and not communicated, which is why we made it our mission to create so much educational content around the approach. Because when we grew up with our mothers and grandmothers going to the bathhouse and seeing them firsthand work up these DIY potions at home with Jobs tear powder and yogurt and green tea and honey, it really wasn't about a keeping up with the Jones moment or delivering to someone else's expectation. It was really that pampering moment that they carved out for themselves, enjoyed thoroughly, and they would make it fit with their lifestyle. It wasn't stressful. It wasn't having to attain 15 mystical steps to be successful at something. It was a very personal ritual. And I think approaching it that way and understanding that way makes the skincare experience completely different versus setting goals or versus very rigid structure, which makes it less fun and less about you. Because ultimately, your self-care routine has to work for you for it to be successful. And so just to kind of recap, I think because over the years we've put so much effort into educating this, I think some of those shifts have happened, especially with our community members that are those super fans of Glow Recipe. And now nothing makes us happier to see those letters from our customers where they are like, this experience changed my life. Using your mask once a week, I know this sounds crazy, but it actually is the best part of my week because I shut the door, take a 10-minute bath, slather the mask on, and when I emerge from the bath, I feel like a new person. Like these are the words that we love to hear. And it's really been such a positive change, I think, in the self-care, in the skincare market and then self-care as a whole.
Great, thank you. So we are now on to our last question. And this one is from a viewer who would prefer to remain anonymous. And they ask, were there any specific hurdles that held you back from starting Glow Recipe? And if there were, what were they and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, there definitely were some hurdles. I think first and foremost, both Christine and I absolutely loved our jobs actually at that time. So, if we didn't see the opportunity, there was really no reason for us to start our business. We loved what we were doing every single day. We actually were catching up and like just excitedly sharing like our projects and brainstorming things. And that's what our passion was. So that was one challenge, thinking, oh my God, we already love this job. So if we start this new journey, is it going to be even better or not? So we were asking that to ourselves. And then secondly, our parents are Koreans, and as conservative as Korean parents can be, we can all relate to that. They were worried, as young female entrepreneurs that had the dream jobs that we were working so hard at. What are you guys doing? Was the first reaction that our parents had. And they were just worried that, it might be too challenging. There might be too many, ups and downs. And just, you hear about how startups can be really challenging overall. So I think our parents were worried about that. And then thirdly, at that time, I wasn't married. I was a single woman and I didn't have insurance. There were some, realistic things that I was worried about as well. So those are the three things that come to mind right now. But I think what didn't matter at the end of the day was that we believed in this opportunity wholeheartedly. I mean, we really believed that this could work, and we were passionate about the category Korean skincare ourselves. We were fanatics of Korean skincare. So we knew that there was potential with the product, potential with the technology, but also the industry. We knew that there were, other parts of the world or other parts in the industry that were being influenced slowly by Korean skincare. So we already saw the trend kind of trickling in. We just knew that it was about to explode. So we knew that it was the right timing for us to really jump in it. Otherwise, it might be too late, is kind of what we talked about at that time. And then we also thought about the worst case scenario. What could go wrong? And the worst case was to actually go back to the company that we love so much. Maybe we won't be, in that fast track anymore. We might have to start over in the same role, but we still loved the company and the job so much that it was not really a worst case scenario. And that actually put our minds at ease, and we just jumped right to it.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's actually a really good place to leave off, as this is a Young Professionals Night webcast. I think, you guys talked about this earlier too, but the fact that, yes, you built your business on passion, but you were also smart about it. You saw, you didn't just go with the trend, so to speak. You knew what you wanted, you knew what your vision was, you were very clear about that. And so you had a very clear path. And I think that's, and like you just said, Sarah, you also had a very smart fallback plan as well. So yeah, I think that's a really good advice to leave our viewers. And I just want to take this moment to thank you, Sarah, Christine, and Jenny, for so graciously agreeing to do this program. And a special shout out also to our Korea Society IT Director, Peter, who is invisible but is behind the scenes pulling the strings, and he's been doing such a great job with all of our webcasts. So thank you so much, Peter, for all your hard work. And if you, there he was on screen for like a second. And if you enjoyed tonight's program, we encourage you to check out more programs. We have programs in the area of policy, arts and culture, education. If you go to koreasociety.org, you can check out more upcoming programs. You could also subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Korea Society, in order to stay up to date on all of our programs. So thank you so much. Thank you, ladies. If there are any final words that you would like to say, the table is yours.
Oh, no, just
Thank
thank
you so
you
much.
for having us. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a blast.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Jenny, for being the best moderator as always.
Yeah, seriously,
Thank you, Peter.
so much. All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good night. Bye.